Again, let me welcome you. I'm Jim Flynn from the Board of Trustees here at the library, and it's great to see you here for the fourth installment of our 5-unit, course or whatever, part of the Simsbury continuing education program. Tonight, we're going to talk about archives. And you may recall that when I went through the history of the library recently at one of these, I mentioned that the Free Library had been the circulating library here in town from really 1874 through the 1980s, but the town grew to a point where the Free Library, which is and always has been a private foundation, really couldn't afford to service the town, and therefore the town of Simsbury took over the circulating library, public library function. The trustees then shifted gears and repurposed the library as a research library as opposed to a circulating library. And of course, there's nothing more fundamental to a research library, I think, than would be the archives. So we have archives here. And my colleague, Sarah Negoy, who is our archivist, is going to take over for the second half of the program and tell us all about archives in general, what archivists do, why archives are valuable, and she'll walk us through all the various collections we have in the Free Library. Now, the main archive we have, the one that's the biggest by volume by far, is that of the Ensign Bickford Company. And if you're like me, you're in the town, you know something about the company, but not an awful lot. So I thought it might be useful to spend a few minutes going over their history, their long history, and then we'll take a pictorial walk through the archives. Time wouldn't permit us all to go down there and look around. And then when Sarah talks, she's got all sorts of samples from various archives, including the Ensign Bickford one. So with that, how did it all begin? It all really started with the invention of the safety fuse in England. And a man named William Bickford came up with the idea that there had to be a better way to set off explosives in mines than by simply sprinkling out black powder, lighting a match, and running like hell and praying at the same time. Pretty dangerous method. And what he came up with was a way to tightly wrap some textiles around, I guess, some black powder, but it was a much smoother, slower burn and much safer for the people involved. What does this have to do with Simsbury? Well, it's all about the copper mine. As you may know, copper was discovered in what's now East Granby, I guess Simsbury at the time, in the early 1700s, and off and on for 100 years or so, it was worked intermittently, as I say. But by the 1800s themselves, a company called the Phoenix Mining Company took that over, and a man named Roger Bacon was the superintendent of that mining company. Now, Bacon went to England. I'm not sure why he was there, but what he was there, he heard about and met with Bickford, saw the invention, and said to himself, obviously this is a godsend, and he came back to the U.S. and set up a company, which in 1836, which the grandfather with the Oranges of Ensign Bickford, and they got a license for the safety fuse, and they established the first fuse company, first manufacturing facility in the United States over in Weetag, right? Why Weetag? Well, proximity to the copper mine, but also there was water power. It was near a fairly major city, Hartford, and importantly, it was kind of out in the country because this was still dangerous work. Well, the company did very well. The fuse became widely used. We all recall that in the 19th century, the American expansion westward, the railroads, the canals, mines, a lot of blowing things up to make things happen. And Ensign Bickford really had a great product and was an industry leader. They had one setback that's kind of notable, and that was in 1859 at that fuse works over in Weetag. They had an explosion, and it killed 8 young women. And subsequent to that, they moved to the facility we all know down the street here with those specially made buildings that contain explosions. And it's been there ever since. Now, I don't think anybody at Ensign Bickford talks about Simsbury as being a company town, but I've known some company towns. I've been to them. We all have probably. And it would kind of fill the bill because an awful lot of people here work for them. They provided the fire and the safety, a lot of municipal services. Their executives became community leaders, including the original trustees of this library in 1874. Well, over the years, the ownership and the management passed through a number of changes. Some of the key figures in that history, of course, would be Bickford, who invented the safety fuse. There's a man named Joseph Toy, and his family tree is over here if you want to look at it. And Toy was another Englishman from Cornwall, I think, and he came here in the 1830s or 40s, became, I don't know what his title was, but effectively the general manager of the fuse operation, and really, I guess, organized it well from a business, from a safety, from an engineering point of view. And he also, from what I've read, became kind of an advocate, traveled the country talking up this invention and drumming up a lot of business in the process. Now, Ensign Bickford remains a privately held company. So I think there are 5 generations there. I think by now we're into the 6th iteration from the original folks who founded it, most of whom are descended from Joseph Toy. They adopted the name we know, it's a little bit different now, but Ensign Bickford and Company in 1887. And in kind of a significant move at the time, in 1907, they acquired or merged with a company called Climax Fuse, you know, Climax Road down here at Avon, so that's where that name came from. Needless to say, when you make things related to explosives, you know, there's a lot of opportunity in wartime for the use of your product. So World War I, obviously they supplied fuses for artillery shells and all sorts of demolition operations. World War II, that continued. And prior to World War II, in 1937, they had another technological breakthrough, kind of like the safety fuse, and that is something called Primacord. And while the safety fuse would give you a slow, steady burn, Primacord would give you the instantaneous charge, and you could use it from far away and in multiple locations. So I think we've all seen Roadrunner cartoons and all like that. So that's Primacord. Primacord became so popular that it's one of those things that lost the use of its trade name. It's kind of like Band-Aid, Thermos, Formica. These were all specific names that companies had and tried to protect, but just didn't do any good. It's like, make me a Xerox copy. You saw the ads, there were 2 R's in Xerox. So I had a friend who used to work for IBM. He'd say, make an IBM of this, but it never really worked. EB kept evolving, and in the Cold War, of course, there was a lot of emphasis on missiles and nuclear deterrent and all like that, and they did a lot of government work, and a lot of their efforts went into supporting the space program. Gemini, Mercury, Apollo missions. They made the devices that blew apart, if you will, or separated the stages in those multi-stage rockets. And in the 1980s, they established a separate subsidiary called Ensign Bickford Aerospace Company. Today, Ensign Bickford, now called Ensign Bickford Industries, is a real conglomerate. It's a diversified holding company. From what I can ascertain, has about 1,000 employees across the country, Connecticut, Kentucky, California. There is the Ensign Bickford Aerospace and Defense Products business, which is down the street here. And again, they make missile components and those sorts of things. But the pure explosives business, they sold off. And that now resides in a company that I think owes its beginnings to the Nobel company, Alfred Nobel, invented dynamite and the Nobel Peace Prize and all that stuff that we're familiar with. But they have other subsidiaries, a little bit far afield, as in pet food palatability science and laboratory testing and aerospace mechanisms, all very, very high-tech stuff. And that's the business they're in today. So when I look at Ensign Bickford now, 190 years into the mission, they've been one of the most important institutions in this town, no doubt about that. They've employed thousands of people over the years. Maybe somebody here works for them, you know somebody who works for them. They are, or were at least, a paternalistic company in the sense, for example, that during the Great Depression, they didn't lay employees off. They didn't have the business, but they had employees go around and build houses, do improvement. Something you probably wouldn't see these days. And again, a lot of their philanthropy has supported this library, the Historical Society, all the other libraries in town. They've been a very good corporate citizen. It's just, to me, it's amazing that in 1836, some guy forms a company in a little town in New England, and 190 years later, it's basically a global company, a leader in a high-tech world. So quite a story. I don't think they have the PR of other companies because maybe it's just their style or privately held company, and maybe because they made such a dangerous or potentially dangerous product over the years that publicity wasn't. They're not out there selling to the average consumer, so most people don't know a whole lot about them. Well, now to the central topic, archives. In 1998 and then in the year 2000, Ensign Bickford, their foundation, gave us money to do some renovations downstairs and establish a space for archiving their materials. If you go down there, there's a plaque at the door telling you the names of some of the people who were instrumental in getting all that done. This may be a little bit dated because I know they are still submitting things, and I know Sarah showed me the other day something she got last week. Amazing stuff. I mean, I held in my hand the handwritten document that created the original company in 1836, this beautiful long penmanship. This is it. This is the joint venture document or whatever the proper name would be. So something to see. But when they originally gave us the material, it was 134 boxes of material. Of course, there is a finding guide. Without that, we'd be sunk. And there are samples all around that you can see when Sarah takes over. Here's a picture of what's downstairs. There's the finding guide. That was kind of an effort to put that together, for sure. They've celebrated a lot of anniversaries, for 190 years. They had a big one here 15 years ago, and it was quite a thing to see because they had probably over 100 of the families in the fourth, fifth, sixth generation coming back. Any number of ceremonies, and we had some presentations here in the library. Some documents down there that show you that it was highly secure kind of a facility. There is extreme detail in some of what's downstairs as far as the operating details go. There are ledger books and the like, all the day-to-day business stuff. Maybe more general interest would be the scrapbooks, the newspapers, and newsletters, because these things are kind of a living history of what was going on in Simsbury in those years. There are also lots of pictures. And it's not just documents and pictures. There are maps and posters and drawings and award flags. Nice blueprint for a hand grenade there. Of course, they had the top military brass visiting over the years. And we're rightly recognized by the Defense Department and the Army and Navy for their contribution to the war effort. So that's my tee-up. And Sarah, well, she's watching a basketball game somewhere. Oh, there she is. Hello. Yes, sir.
Very well done and very appreciated. In 1951, my family moved to Simsbury. There were 5,000 people. And roughly half of them were farmers or associated with farming, and the other half of them were associated with the Ensign Bickford Company and the associated industries that had them. It's always been, it's a remarkable company of its length, but it's still in business, but it's a close-held company. It was held by the family. So Jim led our effort to welcome them back 15 years ago, and we had more than 100 of them, including people from England, here at the historical site, and they come back to Simsbury because they realize that this is where the company is, and although the company operates in Utah and other places now, this is the mother lode of that, and we're very lucky to have them as significant benefactors of our library. The fuse business was remarkable, and it was called originally Safety Fuse, and then the Primacord. Primacord was unique because it was an explosive fuse. So when they used Primacord's application was largely in strip mines or large bore-blading mines, and what they do is they lay out 300 yards of Primacord, and they would ignite it. And the Primacord got so refined that when they light it, it would all blow up in a second. It would blow the layer up, and then it would have a second charge and you'd blow it back down so that it wouldn't dissipate into the air. It was a remarkable thing. There was a tremendous relationship of Ensign Bickford to DuPont Nemours, which made the bulk chemical, and that Ensign Bickford made the fuses, and there was a very synergistic relationship there. So much so that when Bob Darling, who was a man who was alive when I was here, when Bob Darling, the guy I knew, and his father died, they stopped the trading of DuPont on the New York Stock Exchange because he owned so much of it, and there was that close of a relationship. But it's the families that have contributed so much to Simsbury. One of our benefactors, Tim Ellsworth, his father, John Ellsworth, was the president of the company. And in the back, we have one of the best histories of Simsbury, and I think he wrote two, but he wrote the long history of Simsbury. He was a historian, and they believed in Simsbury blue and gold. So thanks, Jim, for that, but I just had a few notes.
Oh, great stuff. You know them pretty well.
Yes. Thank you, TJ. And thank you, Jim. Hello, welcome. I'm Sarah Nieboy. I've been an archivist here for over 10 years. I started my love of history back in high school, but then went to college and pursued a Bachelor of Arts in History. While at UVM, I worked in the government documents department, and I just fell in love with maps, all sorts of primary sources. I filed them, and I'd be stuck in the stacks reading them, and I wasn't very quick at my job, but I really learned a lot. And one of the things I learned was how to reflect, question, reflect, and observe, and develop those critical thinking skills. So I decided to pursue a Master of Library Science at Rutgers University, and then I worked in the GovDoc department there as well, and then entered into the working world in corporate America. So I worked for American Cyanamid. That became American Home Products, mostly in pharmaceuticals and chemicals. And then I left there, went to Minnesota, worked for an outsourcing knowledge management company called Teltec. And they had very prestigious customers, including GE and Cabot Corp, who I was on the team. And I eventually took over managing the Cabot Corp library, their technical library, on site in Billerica, Massachusetts. So then I found myself with a lovely family. I took a little break, and I fell in love with Simsbury Free Library when I was asked to join here and help them with the archives. I love the people here. I love the collections here. It has been such a joy to work here and learn and continue to develop my skills, and I'm very thankful for this opportunity. So, with that being said, what is our mission here at Simsbury Free Library? It's to connect people through genealogical and historic research and cultural programming to foster community and belonging. And how does Simsbury Free Library support that? Well, we actively accept donations for our archives. We have quite a collection to be archived. I'm currently working on 3 or 4 things as we speak. But I only work 5 hours a week, 5 to 6. So over 10 years, I've been able to accomplish some great things, but I want to do more, always want to do more. So, but I'm thankful because they support my job, which is archiving. And Simsbury Free Library also provides electronic access to our collections. And that was what I was tasked with when I first came on. Jamie Cantoni, who is a consultant here, helped develop policies, procedures, intake forms, all of the things necessary to make an archive really official and help it grow. And then I took over by helping put all those print resources, the findings that we had that were originally in print, up electronically on our website with the help of Allison Watson Mason, who spoke to you about genealogy just recently, and who's also serves as our IT help. We wear many hats here. So yeah, we put all of our collections, we're aspiring to put them up online, and we have a sortable spreadsheet online. You can sort them by series, by subject, by date. So it's a little bit more involved than just cataloging a book, which is what libraries do. Archivists do something very different. They have to, so I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's keep going here. Why do we archive? Well, repositories like Simsbury Free Library are the best source for unique and authentic local primary sources, like diaries, letters, photos, unpublished manuscripts, all created by residents or local companies. These sources tell us what happened firsthand throughout Simsbury's history. We archive to provide connection to our common heritage. Secondary sources, like the history books Mr. Ellsworth May published, are limited by their time and place simply because they are produced in a certain time and place, and they represent also an individual's perspective in time. Critical thinkers review primary sources. They review primary sources so that we can get a more accurate picture of our community by addressing lost voices or historic biases. That helps us to build community belonging when we share our common heritage. Archives demonstrate how our past is connected to our future. Established residents share their stories, and then new residents add to it to become part of the story. Who uses archives? Well, I have a table over here. You're welcome to look at it later, but local historians like our Mary Jane Springman, who wrote many of our quarterly articles.
What was her name again?
Mary Jane Springman.
Oh, my mother's a Freeman. Okay.
Yeah. Historical fiction writers like Cara Labella. We have 4 of her books here. Yeah. Travel writers like Nick Bellantoni. He came and did a presentation on his great book there. Biographers like Will McLean Greeley. Teachers like the Simsbury High School. I know I saw you. Where you are? Mr. Curtis, History Department. Our students, I worked with a number of Simsbury High School capstone students. They've helped me to review archives and go through different collections, and National Honor students, and community organizations like Boy Scouts and societies as well, like the Daughters of the American Revolution, the Abigail Phelps chapter. Where do our archives come from? Individuals and families. You'll see a number of our various collections up there and who they are from. Most notably, Amos R. Eno, our founder and benefactor, who built our beautiful library in 1890. William Phelps Eno, his son, whose office is there present. He was author of the first Rules of the Road. Local businesses like our Ensign Bickford. And Weldon Hardware. We have Alice Irene's collection. This is just a sampling, by the way. And also we have local historians who have donated very kindly much time and energy and effort, including Mary Jane again and Carl Walter, who built our beautiful canal and did our maps. And here again, I've mentioned our Daughters of the American Revolution. How to determine if a donation fits? Well, first of all, what we do is we kind of, when we get an inkling of a new collection coming our way, we kind of put our hats on and heads together and ask ourselves, does it support our mission? When we look at that, we look at, what do we have in our collections? What do we focus on? History, local history, all the way for all the states in New England. Many, many genealogies. That's a primary focus of our collection. Primary sources. So, does it match our general collection's emphasis, those I just mentioned? Does it contain primary sources, things like diaries, things that we can take a look at? Does it contain unique historic and regional secondary sources? Something unique. We're looking for unique things. So how do we make our archives available to the public? This is our website. Here you'll see, you just select research on our bar there. Then you can click here for archives. And then you'll get a list of all of our collections. This is constantly growing through the efforts of many people. And here I'm going to show you, once you click on these collections, you'll be directed to a finding aid. This is one for Ensign Bickford Archives. And you'll see here is the series arrangement, the donator, the manuscript number. If you go further down, you'll get a scope. I'm going to take you through the subsidiary, Coastal Manufacturing and Supply, which is based in Livermore, California. I just finished their collection. They, in the 1900s, were a division and sold on the West Coast and throughout. So here is their collection. Here is the series of arrangement. You see this manuscript number is the same, but this is an added to collection, so it has a different accession number. And this is the scope of this particular collection. And like you said, we had many new letters that we received. I'm going to point out a few fun things. During that analysis with our Simsbury High School capstone student, and you're welcome to come see these. This is a May 1937 article of agreement between Bickford, George Smith, Thomas Davies, Richard Bacon, and Joseph Ailes. It's dated April 15, 1846. I have it in a plastic right now so you can look at it a little bit better. We love these documents. This here is an example of, here we are, Julia Whiting, Ensign Darling. And this is a letter from her mama. She said she went to Miss Porter's school, and this was a Valentine's Day letter to her daughter. I printed out a copy so you can actually read it if you'd like to take some time with that, because we want to protect the originals. If you'd like to see who Julia Whiting Ensign Darling is, in 2014 we had a generous donation by Caleb and Betsy White of her portrait, and that's in the next room on the desk to your right. So yeah, we've also got things. I have another series. This came in our collection. One of the things about collections is that we receive all sorts of things, and we don't really know quite how to preserve them. Preservation is a very big part of archiving things. We put them in acid-free folders, boxes, as you see, you know, special plastics. Oh, I'm holding up the Connecticut Tertiary 1965 to 1935 plaque that survived the burning, I guess. So this is going to be rehoused and repackaged, but so that's an example. If you want to go to pick out something from our collection, all you do, here, we're going to go into Coast Manufacturing and Supply. Is go into the finding aid, and you'll see here on the left that there's a row number, and then it kind of goes into details about the different series. I've picked one part of the section of the finding aid to show you the most numbers of series, what the subject matter is, and then the dates, and then more detailed notes. So if you want to come on in, you can always send us an email and just reference the row number, and we'll pull it for you. When you're using our archives, we ask that you use them up here. We like to protect them. They are unique. They're important to us and to this community and to Ensign Bickford. So we ask that you leave your coats and bags to the side. You use special paper, only pencil, that things get filed. You know, we're there to help you through the process so that things go back responsibly and orderly. So yeah, so, or you could come on in and fill out a call slip. That's the other old-fashioned way. So, and just a note to this Climax Fuse, this was another local art author that we just got a source of this book from, Climax Fuse, The Explosive History of Ensign Bickford by Peter Floyd Sorensen. So you may take a look at all these wonderful sources later, when at the end. How do we archive a new collection? It takes a long time. This is just a kind of a brief list, even though it looks like a lot. Like I said, we all get together, we interview the donor, we fill out the deed of gift, we assign manuscript numbers and accession numbers, and then we take a first pass through the collection. I'm going to use our most current collection from Mary Jane Springman. That is a soup to nuts collection. We've never seen it before it came in. It has over 20 boxes. We need to take a first pass through the entire collection to understand what it is, and we do a container list for each box. Then we start thinking about, okay, what did we see in this? How could this be arranged? How granular are we going to go with our arrangement? Are we going to look at it from a group of collection standpoint, or go down to an item, down to items? So then as we're thinking about it, we kind of map things out. Over there, you'll see I have a big board kind of hiding in the corner there. This is our container list board, but we use a lot of paper, and we do it the old-fashioned way, and diagram and think of different creative ways that the series might have been organized originally. Did it come in original order? Did the researcher put it in a specific, it's called respectifrance. Like, one of our goals is, as archivists, is to keep things as close to the original order as possible. We don't add anything to a collection. We don't take anything out of the collection. If it is to be deaccessioned because of rust or mold or insects or mice. We'll make a copy of it so we have the information, but we can't hold on to some of these things because they're dangerous to our larger collections. So there's a lot that goes into looking through a collection initially. So then we'll take a second pass through the collection and we'll dig deeper. We're gonna go look at things closer, and we create a map of subgroups and series, and then we put together our finding aid, our general guide, and then we start. We get out our boxes, we get out our folders. We might have had to purchase new boxes and folders like we did for this collection. After I measured the entire collection, it was over 4 bookcases worth of information that came in from Mary Jane Springman. So we ordered over $1,000 of boxes and folders and things to preserve this collection. So we begin our foldering and box arrangement by series. We conduct our preservation as we're going through each one. We label, we file the files and the boxes. Then we create our finding aid description of archives, the DAC, using special archival standards and procedures. And then we publish our finding aid, our final finding aid. So this can take a couple of years, because I work 5 hours a week. And and we have a few students and helpers that come and join us. So, but we have a couple different archive collections that we're managing at different times. Like if we have a small amount of time, I'll work on the 2023 collection for Ensign Bickford. If I have more time, I will spend 5 hours all on Mary Jane's collection, so I can focus the whole time. It requires a lot of thinking, and you have a lot of information to process. So I take it home, I think about it, and I continue working because I like it. So I did mention some of these. We keep our collections separate and distinct. We honor the original order, respect pour la France. I don't speak French, so sorry. We do our preservation. We have to wait time for processing. And, I talked about the granularity. We can't do things at item level. But we're looking for expediency and efficiency and following standards. Yep. So here I did this. I mentioned all of these great samples for the 2023 Ensign Bickford collection and the letters to Julia. So thank you. This is kind of my map that I devised after going through the 20 plus boxes with my other helper, Julia, and with Allison. We kind of are always running ideas by one another. But when Mary Jane's collection came in, it was her office, like William Phelpsino. It was received in boxes. We couldn't be sure that the boxes were her original order. Sometimes things came in that didn't make sense, and we knew that they got put in there because there was space. But what we did is we looked at the overall collection and we broke it up into 3 accession numbers. So her Mary Jane Springman collection has a manuscript number of 10. Each of these that we broke it up into, the reference books we took, and that is a special collection that belongs in our reference library. So we created Julia, who does our cataloging for the library, created a special collections for Mary Jane Springman, and she's cataloging each of those books. Now those are the general reference books that will be housed in with our general reference collection. Then she had her quarterly newsletter. If you see here, we have Simsbury families, the account book information, and the other quarterly authors that all participated in creating this 18th century guide that she worked tirelessly on and composed many, many articles So if you'll see our newsletter, which is also available on our website under our researcher resources, you will see her articles and be able to search for them. So we broke that into four bins, or what I would call series. And then the sub-series are the individuals related to each of those subject areas. This kind of fourth one, the quarterly admin, she had done all the work on producing the quarterlies, so we also got with that her invoices, another whole collection, 2 collections of the quarterlies all put together in volumes, and a CD-ROM with all of her information on it. So that was also part of her quarterly newsletter collection. That might not necessarily be available to the public, but it's in our collection and in our wheelhouse here at Simsbury Free Library. The next collection we have from Mary Jane Sprigman are her interviews. We have the actual tapes of her interviews, and they are fascinating. They're of people in our community who have a wealth of information, much like TJ and Jim and Tara. You talk to any of these board members, and they know volumes. And we don't want to lose it. Mary Jane went about interviewing everybody, all these people that she felt were really important. We have Mary Mitchell, Gertrude Perry, Richard Wagner, Lois Comstock, Alan Bugspear. Now, she might not necessarily have gotten to writing an article. It was her intention to, possibly, but we have at least the interviews. So we're very happy to have those. We hope to have them transcribed at some time. But at this point, we know that they're there, and we have an opportunity to go back and take a look if somebody comes in and would like to pursue a project. So, with that being said, how can you or someone support our Simsbury Free Library's mission of just housing all of a history of Simsbury as much as we can help gather and collect and keep and protect? You can donate to our capital campaign. It's it's very necessary to develop new archives as we're receiving new collections all the time. We need processing space. I have a large table. I'll use this table. I'll take up the whole table with one box. And there's 2 more downstairs, and it's not unusual for me to take up the whole table. So space is nice to have. Resources are nice to have, to buy boxes. So you could fund a specific project if you so wished. Do you have any experience with grant writing? We always could use funds. So if you know how to write a grant, we would love some help. We can identify many grants, but we just don't always have the time to apply for them. You can follow us on Facebook and just like our collections and be here. Thank you for being here tonight. And you can spread the word. We're always looking for donations. You might possibly have something in your attic. We don't like necessarily the storage war kind of material that might come. But if it fulfills our mission for local historical genealogy or primary sources or unique historical resources, we'd love to see it. We're loving diaries, letters, account books, all of the things that you could find in our collections so that we can preserve our local history for future generations. So that's it. Thank you. Any questions?
Do you pursue collections?
At this point, we have such a backlog. We're always welcome to receiving them. Oftentimes, people come to us first with a collection, but that is part of our mission. So yes.
There aren't some archives out there that you absolutely want to get one day?
Oh, yes. Oh, you mean like a local business?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I've talked to many people as I wander around town. I know Tara's often speaking, Jim and TJ, often talking to many, many different people. Yes. Yes.
Do you collect collaborate with the Simsbury Historical Society as far as the Ensign Bickford displays or anything? Do you work in conjunction?
We certainly always support one another. We have different kind of collections. Ours is more research oriented, more document sources. Theirs is more artifacts and actual things. But we definitely collaborate. Whenever anybody comes here, we always send them on to the Historical Society because we both do a lot of similar things, but differently.
So you're more documents.
I would say that, historical research. Yes.
Have you seen the Ensign Bickford exhibit at the Historical Society?
Rome.
They have a whole building, the Elstree building.
Setup of the whole manufacturing process for the
We
original
never
safety.
touch, we're told not to touch the books or anything.
Yeah.
They're the original, we think they're the original too.
It's a great display. It's very, and it talks a lot about what Jim was talking about.
Yeah, and over the years, we've done a few things with the Historical Society, but as Sarah mentioned, we're not competitors or anything, kind of complementary organizations. Probably the highlight, or one of the highlights, was the tour we did of the Farmington Canal, or what's left of it, with Carl Walters. And we jointly sponsored that. We took a bus kind of down to where, New Haven almost, so not quite, Cheshire, that area, and traced it all the way back where the canal was, under 84, down to Aqueduct Road there in Avon, which is a place where there was an aqueduct to make the canal work, and a replica of that is right in there. So, yeah, we work with them, but not on a daily basis, but whenever the opportunity presents itself, it makes sense for both of us.
Their deep history of the building that they're in, they say that was part of a tavern that was along the canal route. An overnight stay. Rich history.
Are the buildings that are down behind the Whole Foods that look very similar to the Ensign Bickford buildings here, are they part of what was on Climax Road, or
I'm going to.
where the art center is?
That was the site of the original Climax Fuse
Okay.
Company, and then EB took them over and put them in. One thing to note about those buildings and the buildings we have right here in town is, Jim talked about the fact that they have a very hazardous circumstance or a very explosive circumstance.
Right.
And all of those buildings are constructed so if they did have a mishap, the roofs would blow off and it would release the pressure of the explosion.
Didn't Ensign Bickford have an accident in like Bay?
Yes, they did.
Oh, okay.
They had a runaway explosion. On the other side of the road from the river, up in the hill, they had the bunkers where they kept explosives, and they had a runaway explosive and a drum.
When was that?
84, 85?
I was playing golf in Avon, and I saw the smoke drift up from them.
And then you were
You
evacuated.
could probably say you were playing golf when most everything happened around here. But
Yeah.
that's another
And people
story.
downtown were evacuated to get out of the space.
We definitely have in our beautiful collection, I'll just show you one of these scrapbooks. Ensign Bickford did a great job of documenting its history and its employees and the parties, the people who served. They created these beautiful scrapbooks. I'm going to show you. This is what they are contained in right now. If you go downstairs, you saw all our boxes. This is the EP Centennial Celebration program and letters. But many of the news articles that you about those explosions are in these collections. They're very well documented. They're very concerned about safety. So every mishap is an opportunity to get better and to learn. So it is well documented in their collection. Yes. Yes.
Is there anything in the archives with respect to the EB houses and what level of what worker got what type of home, and if you were a supervisor, you got this, and because there are so many different ones, the vast majority are the ones like you see in Pine Hill. But as you're going down Hot Meadow, obviously there were,
Additional ones.
well, and people who maybe had higher roles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a good question. And that's the kind of question that comes in here. And then we can help you go down and do the research. Yes, we love this inspiration. These are the questions. This is why we archive. So people with questions like yours can come in and do the research. So I would love to help you anytime. We can take a look at that. There are a lot of pictures, I can tell you that. And there are a lot of accounting records. Definitely salaries, employees, what they paid out. So there's so much information, but it will take digging. That's what research requires. But the information's there.
And so when that research is done, does the library retain a copy of that so you don't have to reproduce the whole search again?
Oh, well, hopefully whoever's doing the research will donate a copy of their research, and keep careful bibliographic control. Mary Jane Sprigman, if you saw any of her newsletters, half of the document is her sourcing.
Mm-hmm.
And so Tara actually has her Chicago Manual Style, so I bought a new one. This is, what we do to kind of keep track of things. And so any research that is produced, hopefully the author would help document that.
The information that you seek is not probably organized as it would be with Sarah if it was done, but it's all here.
Mm-hmm.
And the major houses on Hot Meadow Street, the Ensign House, which is the restaurant now, and the Cannon Medical Building. The Cannon Medical Building was Bob Darling's house, senior, and the Ensign House was Joe Lovejoy. He was born in that house, and that was the Ensign House. Ensign's the dominant family name, and it's a contained family. I mean, it didn't go far. It was a major investment by them. There's also a paper in the library here of the factory houses and when they were built and how they were built. And Jim normally tells you the story that it was an enlightened company that attracted a lot of people and that they needed to house them. And that's one of the commitments to the community that they made. And, they held them in their ownership right up until the 50s.
Thank you.
How do you decide when you're going through materials what you will make available to the public and what's not made available? Is there?
In the case, most everything is made available, and on the finding aid, it will say open to this. This collection is open for research. So it's if it's something that we feel like, in terms of Mary Jane Sprigman's newsletters, that's something that we produce. So we didn't feel necessary to share like our invoices. It's just kind of not necessary, but we love the content and we want you to have all the content you could possibly have. So also interviewing and the original deed, the original creator of the actual archive will let us know how to, if we deaccession or don't want to make something available. There is something in the contract that says if they would like it, we will return it to them. Otherwise, we can dispose of it as we will. And we will oftentimes go to other organizations. Well, we don't like to get rid of anything. We're archivists, so we like to hold on to things. But we would find a nice place that makes sense for that piece of information. Yes?
I actually had a question about Wagner, but then you mentioned Weldon, and
Yes.
the Weldon building. I know it's Weldon Hardware, and I know it's no longer owned by Weldon, but what do you have in the archives that deals with the Weldons? I have to imagine they were very prominent when the railroad came through, but can you offer any enlightenment on that? Or?
I can. I didn't compose. That was one of our first finding aids that Allison Krug did back in 2005 or 6. And she, it came in an original order, so she just followed the containers and mark things as they were presented in those containers. So there are family photos, there are letters, there are accounts of Alice Irene Weldon's personal nature. I'm not sure how much of that might be addressing the business, but then again, those are great questions. Come on down, take a look. Yeah.
Bill Weldon was a very prominent guy in the 50s. He was our state representative. At that time, the towns had one representative per town, which was kind of, so that's the way it was set up, and he was our state representative. He had the hardware store. He went to Yale, he was very prominent. And Jim Wade's family knew them very, very well. And I think that what we have is, I think that Irene was a lovely lady, and that would have been Bill and Irene. I don't think they had children, but they had a marvelous love story. And I think that a lot of those letters are her personal letters to Bill when they were traveling. So.
And photographs as well, yeah, a lot of travel records, correct. Yes.
How
Yes.
much of the archives are digitized?
We do scan very special collections. Like we did get, as things come in, we might not have time to process them right away, but we got Kilbourne collection. If you see the beautiful house right by Squadron Line that was just renovated to like the T,
Right.
down to the barn, which has all been redone. He was an optometrist, and he met the love of his life during World War I in Germany, in Vienna, sorry, he was in Vienna. So we have their portraits, and we have his collection. He also had a love of photography. Many of the war photos we scanned at the time that the collection came in, because we thought, oh, we want to preserve these, we want to keep these, we don't want to be opening up the book and looking through it. So yes, we do have them available. We haven't digitized everything. We don't have the resources to do that, but we do do certain sections and portions of collections that we find are could be fragile, we want to preserve, and are accessible to people that way. Yes.
Is everything that's been digitized available through the website?
No. That's a future, I hope, dream. Requires grants, requires people. We have them on our network and saved up on Google Drive so that they can be preserved. Yeah, at this point. So it's really kind of old-fashioned here. Come on in. We'll show you where you can go and take a look. But we're getting better and better every day. Yes. Anybody else?
I think one thing I can say about the Free Library is that we have a small but incredibly talented staff, if you will, of real world-class experts, shamelessly underpaid, but in the goodness of their heart, who work here and have put together just a remarkable amount of work. Sarah's work on the archives has been incredible for 10 years, and we saw Allison a week or two ago on the genealogy. So again, come on in. We have experts and delightful people, so look forward to working with you in the future. And please come on up if we're through.
Absolutely.
Check out what we have and ask any questions and the like. And thanks again for coming tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
For over 40 years, SCM has been the voice of our town,
bringing us together through local programming,
education, and live broadcasts.
SCM isn't just about television.
It's about empowering our community,
ensuring our voices are heard during government meetings, and celebrating milestones
like our high school graduations.
But today, SCM faces a challenge.
Our funding structure is based on television subscriptions.
And it's no secret, people have been cutting the cord.
With a shift to internet-only subscriptions,
SCM receives less revenue,
even though all our programming is freely available online.
We need your support.
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 Your donation can make a difference.
It will ensure that SCM remains open,
continues to educate our youth,
and keeps our community informed.
Thanks to SCM, I've been honing my creative skills, helping me work towards my college degree.
SCM is crucial for keeping our community connected.
SCM isn't just here to broadcast local events. They're actually preserving Simsbury's history.
Join us.
Join us in preserving Simsbury's voice.
Simsbury's voice.
Together we can ensure that SCM continues to thrive
for generations to come.
Visit our website
or scan the QR code on your screen to make your donation.
Every contribution
counts.
Thank you for supporting Simsbury Community Media,
where your town,
your schools,
and your government come together.